get people alone, and you take the person that's having the bigger trouble with the logic, okay, bigger trouble with the argument. Mostly it's the women. And then I teach that person a technique. I'll teach it to you. I call it arguing in the subjective. Or that phrase that you can say, that you can draw them in, that you can say over and over. It all comes down to ice cream. And I'll do the role play, and I'll say, you know, first you find out no matter how controlling most husbands are, or most men are, typically when they go to Baskin-Robbins, or they're Baskin-Robbins out here? Okay. When they go to Baskin-Robbins, the wife gets to order any flavor she wants. No argument. They're pretty good. So I say, when I'm dealing with the client I'm trying to teach this arguing the subjective to, I say, okay, let's do a little bit of a role play here. You know, I'll say something like, you know, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Someone want to give me a favorite flavor? You know, I wanted to have a realistic role play, and I wanted to teach something that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Chocolate chip? Who likes chocolate chip? Everyone knows that butter pecan is the best flavor of ice cream. Why would you like chocolate chip? What is your logical justification for eating chocolate chip?
I grew up with it and ate it all my life.
Well, it's time to change to a better flavor now, don't you think? Butter pecan's out there, it's waiting for you. I do that because it very much emphasizes the point, and that is there is no logical reason for liking chocolate chip or butter pecan. Okay? It's subjective. So the technique involves taking any argument, and you can try this because it will drive people absolutely nuts if you do it right. Taking any argument that you have and making it purely subjective. Purely subjective. When you make arguments purely subjective, what happens is it's very hard for the person to pry you away. Example, somebody, and usually again I'm talking to the women, so I'm back in the session. Say your friends call you. Your friend calls you and says, hey, we're all at the Ground Round. I don't know if there are Ground Rounds down here. We're all at the local restaurant. Come and join us. Now, you really don't want to go. You don't feel like it. So you say to your friend, I don't feel like it. What's the first thing she says? Why? Let's get the logic. See, that's the way we work. That's where the logic is. It's more, that argument, that hand on hand is more pervasive than you think. So you say, well, you know, I have to mop. I have to mop the kitchen. She says, you can do that tomorrow. And you can almost picture that back and forth trying to pry a person away. Maybe not a lot of emotional intensity in this, but I'm teaching my technique of subjective arguing. So we do it differently. We're all at the restaurant. You want to come down? No, I don't. Why? You know, I have a reason. I just really don't feel like it. Oh, come on down to the restaurant. No, I'm not going to come down. I just am so in one of those stay-at-home modes. It just feels right to me to do that. Is there a counter-argument that a person can give? There is one. There's a prior. That prying argument would be, you know, oh, come on, once you get here, you'll feel better. In the subjective arguing technique, you always agree with the other person and tell them they're right with their logic, and then go back to your subjective. Oh, I know when I got there I'd feel better, but you know, I just don't feel like doing it. What ends up happening is it gives the woman, who is often very much at a disadvantage dealing with a take charge, very logical, very forceful spouse, a way of handling it. She doesn't have to come up with a lot of different logical arguments very quickly, thinking fast on her feet. I want a cat. Well, honey, you know, the cats are expensive, and the cat food and there's litter. Yeah, I know. It's just such an expensive thing, and the litter box would be so difficult. And if I got pregnant, toxoplasmosis, you'd have to do it. You're absolutely right. But I want a cat. Well, why do you want a cat? It would make me feel good. Yeah, but didn't you hear what I said? The cats are, they're not as good as dogs, and they're funny looking, and they'll bring dead animals in the house. I know, I was reading that, you're right. They'll do all of those things. But I so want a cat. What do you mean you want a cat? Didn't I just tell you the reason? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right. But I can't get that feeling out of I just want that cat. Whatever it is that you're arguing about, you can turn it into a subjective argument. And in a subjective argument, you can't lose. Now, I actually say the next thing. Again, I'll say it to you. These are things I actually say. I'll say, you know, I'm teaching you something, but there's a truth to life. I would suggest that the things you want and the things you want to do and the arguments you have, you basically try and be a moral, ethical person who is not trying to harm your family or other people. So, yeah, you're allowed to use the same argument. You know, honey, I want to take the kids' college fund. Dump it on mink coats. Okay? That's subjective. But you would have to ask yourself if that's a moral and ethical thing to do. I actually will pull that concept into the sessions. I am talking quickly. The next story, flooding is one of the flooding Gottman also talks about is when people get overwhelmed because of the arguing. I tell couples about a research article I read so long ago I can't even identify it. In fact, at this point, I have this research article so storied out it might be apocryphal, okay? But it kind of explains a little bit of why wives and husbands disagree on one thing in terms of sitting down and talking. I have had husbands say, she's psycho. She is psychotic. Where you know, she just will follow me around the house wanting to talk and talk and talk, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then I have the wives say, he's a cock. My God, he's a big, tough, macho guy. He can't even sit and talk. So one of the things I tell them is about a study where couples were asked to wear basically biofeedback gear, equipment that would measure pulse rate, respirations, galvanic skin response, and muscle tone electromyogram, and keep a diary of when they were fighting. The diary, of course, was to basically confirm that when the husband thought they were fighting, the wife thought they were fighting. And of course, when they were fighting, they found what would happen to the wife's physiological data. Pardon? What would happen? It would go up. And what would happen to the husband's physiological data? It would go up! Men in that situations will have much more of a physiological response to the exact same thing that the woman is sitting across from and is not seeing this. Very likely kind of goes back either to male culture or perhaps male evolution. A fight to a man is a fight means that we're going to fight, and a fight to a woman means we're going to yell. So now I go on to another story. I'm just trying to give you a lot of stories. Two burglars are going to break into a house, and they're going to go down through the chimney. And the chimney is filthy dirty. And naturally, the first burglar, when he goes down the chimney, is covered in soot. And then the second burglar comes down next to him, and then when they get there, the two burglars look at each other. Which one washes his face? Which burglar will go wash his face after they get down the chimney? The first burglar goes down and cleans the chimney with his body and is covered in soot. The second burglar is clean. They look at each other. Who goes to wash the face? The second one. Yes, very good. Because the second one looks and says, Mom, okay, I must be dirty. The first one looks and says, I must be clean. And this is what the husband and the wives are doing. The husband has a physiology that's up through the roof with this arguing and assumes that she's got to be psychotic. No one wants to feel like this, honey. You have to be psychotic. She's sitting there going, what's he running away from? Who runs away from this stuff? They look and assume the other person is having their reaction. And because they're assuming that, they assume the other person should act like they're acting, what they're wanting. I find that to be a very good story in marital counseling. One of the things, and I think I'm almost there. One of the things in Guttman's research talks about failed repair attempts. How do we motivate the couple or the guy to do to continue to try working on the marriage? And one of the things that I found works very, very well, I wonder if it's a term used here. I will often, when I have the guy now alone, remember I just did that whole subjective argument thing with the woman, I have the guy alone, and I'll say to him, I say, you know, I got to ask you a question. You know, you seem to want the marriage to work. I'm trying to find an efficient way for it to work for you. Let me ask you, When you do a 4-hour side job to get the marriage to work, you guys familiar with the term side job? You guys use that down here? No? No?
Off-duty job.
Off-duty job, is that the term? Is where I come from, a side job is a job other than policing you're using to supplement your income. Interestingly, it's another story. I've been doing this long enough where that was a very common term in Suffolk County. It is not a common term anymore. I've had to find alternative stories. Officers in Suffolk County no longer really do extra work in order to supplement their income. But what I found is that very often, if you're actually, I just do an extra 4-hour side job, it saves the marriage. I go, yeah, you do a 4-hour side job, it saves the marriage. The lawyer's costs, the aggravation to the kids, the heartache and the pain. It's okay, well, what do you mean exactly? What side job? I go, wow, it's not exactly a side job. You just got to decide to take your marriage as seriously as you would a 4-hour side job because it's really that simple at times. If you basically say, I'm going to have a 2-hour dinner once a week with my wife, and the other 2 hours I'm going to put into talking and sitting with her while we're doing something, you get a total of 4 hours, you can keep a log, you can keep a diary, and you can realize at the end of the week you're doing about a 4-hour side job, your marriage is working as a result. So that's another technique that I use. One of the things that this fits in with the side job also is, and I think also the failed repair attempts, is the reactive culture of policing versus the proactive. The cops are great at reacting, but sometimes if you say, and this is where Gary's stuff is very good, what are you going to do to fix it? What's going to be your proactive plan on fixing the marriage? That's a real short version. I think I finished on time with the marriages. What we're not doing is affairs and specific techniques that have to do with cops who've had affairs.